So convalescent plasma therapy is actually something that's been used for over 100 years for various infectious diseases. And it's been effective in some and not so effective in others. So as far as COVID is concerned, again, this was one of the early therapies that was begun to be used. Essentially what it involves is collecting plasma from people who have recovered from COVID and then using it to transfuse into someone who's ill. And generally it's been used in severely ill patients who've been hospitalized. There are a number of clinical trials going on around the world looking at convalescent plasma compared to standard of care. And only a few of them have actually reported out on results. And the results are not conclusive. I should say that the trials have been relatively small and the results in some cases point to some benefit, but have not been conclusive. And we've been tracking this and we do ongoing meta-analyses and systematic reviews to see where the evidence is shifting or pointing. And at the moment, it's still very low quality evidence. So we recommend that convalescent plasma is still an experimental therapy. It should be continue to be evaluated in well-designed, randomized clinical trials. There are a few challenges with convalescent plasma as opposed to monoclonal antibodies that we talked about earlier. Monoclonal antibodies, because they're developed in a manufacturing setup under GMP, you know exactly the titer of antibodies and the dose that needs to be given. Whereas convalescent plasma, one of the challenges is each individual may have different titers of neutralizing antibodies after recovery, and it's very difficult to really test that and standardize that. And so it's not one standardized therapy because blood is being drawn from different patients and then being transfused. So that's one of the challenges. There's also limited capacity for plasmapheresis, where you have to separate the plasma from the cells in the blood, and not all countries and not all hospitals have that kind of facility. And also there's a lack of donors, so there isn't enough to go around. But I think the most important question really is about its efficacy and safety being proven in randomized trials, and I hope that we will get that evidence in the coming weeks. Of course, countries can do emergency use listing if they feel that the benefits outweigh the risks and they want to provide, but that's usually done while awaiting the more definitive evidence, which is yet to come. Thanks. Mary Angela might want to add.
Dr. El will go ahead. He's has something to add.
Yeah, I just think one other point that we'd make with respect to convalescent therapy is, like with all therapies, there can be risks. And so that's another thing that one has to consider. And in the case of convalescent plasma therapies, there are a number of side effects, from relatively mild chills and fevers that can be associated with it to more severe lung-related injuries, even circulatory overload. So for that reason, as Soumya outlined, the clinical trial results are extremely important to know that we've got a clear demonstrated benefit, so that we can weigh both of these in considering the final recommendations.